We will now begin with a panel discussion on cultural sovereignty and pride. This panel will focus on how our cultural sovereignty is critical to our self-esteem, our national security, and our strategic objectives. We invite to the stage Dr. Uma Maheshwari, Principal of SIES College, Sai in Mumbai, and Head of Department of Philosophy at SIES College. She is the recipient of the Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan Distinguished Academic Leadership Award for 2023. Please give her a loud round of applause. We now have Dr. Sangamitra Chatterjee, postdoctoral fellow at IIT Bombay, a young physicist who specializes in soft matter physics, surface and interface phenomena, and completed his PhD from IIT Kanpur in 2019. Next, we have Major Rohit Chaudhary, Managing Trustee of the Ganga Valley Educational Trust, Navi Mumbai, an army veteran who switched his career to technology in the corporate world and eventually plunged into social work and education. And our last panelist for this session, Ms. Ami Ganatra, author and management professional, who is now dedicated full-time to studying and sharing treasures from the vast and profound Indic wisdom traditions. Our moderator for this panel will be Mr. A.L. Sundaresan. He was a senior corporate executive with a large Indian MNC in treasury and funds management functions. He has worked as a consultant in the fields of financial services, banking, and strategic advisory services, and was a strategic advisor to MSMEs as well as bigger companies and served on their boards. Through his illustrious career, he has been an active member in Pan-India movement for serious cinema in the 80s and 90s. As a film critic, he covered film festivals for an English daily and was also an office bearer and involved with the publications of the Federation of Film Societies of India. He also collaborated with the Film and Television Institute of India and the National Film Archive of India for the promotion of cinema. Mr. Sundaresan was involved with the promotion of theatre, performing arts, and Carnatic music, and is known for promoting budding artists. He is currently working in the area of Indic civilizational reclamation. Thank you for being here, sir, and over to you.
Namaste, all of you. Children, it's a little unsettling here because there's so much of light on me. I can't quite make out who's on the other side. So I'm a little nervous on this. Having said that, I'll start with this panel on cultural sovereignty and pride. I would like to remind you that 1200 साल पहले एक ऑब्सक्योर मध्य प्रदेश के विलेज में दो संत लोग आपस में बात कर रहे थे या संवाद कर रहे थे on the highest echelons of Indian philosophy and Vedantic studies. ये चीज़ें आज की शायद पोस्ट डॉक्टरल फेलोज भी नहीं समझ पाए. ऐसे दो व्यक्ति बैठ के परस्पर बात करते देख रहे थे कि कौन उनमें से श्रेष्ठ है, ताकि दूसरा जो हार जाए, जो प्रतिद्वंदी हार जाए, he would, I hope you are able to hear me? Yeah. जो हार जाए या तो सन्यासी थे एक, उनको गृहस्थाश्रम धारण करना पड़ेगा, या दूसरे जो गृहस्थाश्रम थे उनको छोड़ के सन्यासी बनना पड़ेगा. सच वर द हाई स्टेक्स. एंड इस लेवल के डायलेक्टिकल डेप्थ में जो बात हो रही थी, इसे आम लोग बैठ के सुन रहे थे और उसकी रुचि ले रहे थे. ये हमारे भारत में हुआ 1200 साल पहले. एंड सैडली इन दैट सेम इंडिया आज एक अजीब टाइप ऑफ थॉटलेसनेस है, अजीब टाइप ऑफ बाइनरी डिस्कशंस है, जिसमें डाइवर्स ओपिनियंस, डायलेक्टिकल डेप्थ, इनका जगह नहीं है. इसके बारे में तुम यूथ लोगों को चिंतित रहना पड़ेगा, ये मेरा पूरा मानना है. एज अ पेरेंट मैं कहता हूँ कि आप अपने मन को विस्तार करिए. ये नहीं करेंगे तो आगे की जो जर्नी है वो प्लास्टिकली अच्छी रहेगी बट अंतरात्मा से ठीक नहीं रहेगी. ये मेरा कहना है. Coming back to the subject of cultural sovereignty and pride, this is a very layered and nuanced subject. Most लोगों को ये पता है कि cultural sovereignty नाम की कोई चीज़ है, जिसको हम कह सकते हैं कि सांस्कृतिक स्वायत्तता, टू बी फ्री इन योर ओन स्किन एंड योर कल्चर. कल्चर की डेफिनेशन देने की ज़रूरत नहीं है क्योंकि वो ऑल इनकम्पसिंग चीज़ है. इस सब्जेक्ट को समझने के लिए हमारे पास पैनलिस्ट हैं और मैं जो पैटर्न लूँगा, that will not be a lecture pattern but it will be a questioning pattern. I will be a fly on the wall. I would like to draw the panelists to talk from their experience. I would goad them with questions, and by the way, the questions will be structured in a manner as though I am talking to them on behalf of you. If I were a second year student, first year student, third year student in school, college, etc., what would I like to ask these panelists? उस धारणा से मैं उनसे क्वेश्चन पूछूंगा. होपफुली उन क्वेश्चंस के आंसर्स के बीच में कल्चरल सॉवरेंटी एंड प्राइड क्या चीज़ है वो उभर के आएगी. आर एबल टू हियर मी हियर? वो उभर के आएगी ऐसी मेरी धारणा है, एंड आई होप टू गॉड आई एम राइट. एंड अभी पैनल को डिस्कस करने के पहले मैं सिर्फ 2 मिनट लूँगा. मैं कल्चरल हमारी पास्ट को बहुत बड़ी लंबी तरीके से बात नहीं करूँगा. दैट्स नॉट नीडेड. मोस्ट ऑफ यू आर अवेयर ऑफ दैट. But what is important is to place historically a few facts and get a sequential feeling of how we came so that you will know and they will get a platform to start answering on where I am trying to get at. I hope to God I am making sense here. 5000 साल से पुरानी है अपनी सभ्यता, सबको मालूम है. We have 5000 years plus on a blind shot basis. Everybody knows that there is archaeological evidence, all kinds of evidence. We are the oldest living and surviving civilization. Everybody else is ruptured and gone. We are incredibly rich and enriched by 2 special features. Even this is acknowledged by most anthropologists and civilization studies across the world. हमारे यहाँ कभी भी माई वे हाईवे की प्रथा नहीं थी. The reason why our culture flourished and developed and evolved over the years was because it was syncretic. And the funniest part was, it was a large culture which had a lot of subcultures and melting small ones, hundreds of subcultures, each borrowing, each trying to get from the other, and all of them very silently contributing to a whole bigger one which had a common thread. Rajiv Malhotra ji calls it Indra's net. It's almost an invisible kind of thing which spiritually held all these guys together. There was a melding of a type which was very, very organic and syncretic, which nobody is able to find out. This was not the case with Hellenic civilizations or Abrahamic civilizations. There, the feature of something else, we'll avoid that. The other point which was equally important for the culture part was that हमने 5000 साल हो या 10,000 साल कितने पुराने मालूम नहीं, हमने आज तक किसी को जाकर के ये नहीं बोला हम अच्छे हैं क्योंकि हम ये हैं और हमारी ये घाक चलेगी, ये हमारा झंडा है और आपको मानना पड़ेगा. ये हमने किया नहीं. We never wanted to expand. We were absolutely comfortable in our skin that we were very, very good and we didn't have to go around telling the world to follow us. आप आओ नहीं आओ, it doesn't matter. We grew organically, syncretically, melded perfectly and created something fantastic. It had its own minus points, no doubt about it, like all other cultures. But these two points are very, very important. Yet, इतनी सारी चीज़ें होने के बाद में 5000 साल uninterrupted होने के बाद में an egregious intervention of not more than 200 to 300 years from the white man, a European colonizer, he comes and he literally damages our sense of being. ऐसा हुआ कि ऐसे हम डिरेसिनेट हो गए, उन्होंने 200 साल में ये सिद्ध करके बता दिया कि आप बेकार हो. You are redemptionless heathens, savages in need of redemption by us, the civilized Western world. और हमने और हमारी elite ने इस बात को मानी. ये सच है. और आज भी ये जो slavery है हमारी, कि हम कहीं ना कहीं अपने आप में कम हैं, अपने आप में खामी है हमारी, हमें वो दम नहीं है कि हम कह सकें कि हम किसी के लायक हैं. आज एक जापानीज़ उठ के खड़ा होकर कहता है कि मैं जापानीज़ हूँ, उस तरीके से हम बोल नहीं पाते. आज भी हम डिवाइडेड हैं. वी आर sheepish, we are weakish. Why is it that we are not able to stand up for our own past, good, bad, the ugly? Why is it that we need to look at our past with the lenses given by somebody else who came to destroy us? And उसकी दी हुई चैन ऐनक पहन करके हम देखते हैं, कहते हैं नहीं नहीं हम ठीक नहीं हैं. This is the subject of today's discussion. And ये जो disease है बहुत दिनों से चला है, बड़ा न्यूएंस सब्जेक्ट है, इसमें बड़े स्कॉलर्स ने बात करी है, मगर एलिफेंट इन द रूम ये है कि हमारे अंदर जो डीरेसिनेशन है, हमारे अंदर जो डिवैल्यूएशन है खुद के बारे में, सेल्फ लोथिंग के बारे में, इसके बारे में हम खुल के दम से बात नहीं करते. इसीलिए हमने ज्ञानियों को बुलाया है, पैनलिस्ट, एक्सेप्शनल पैनलिस्ट, फाइन पीपल, terrific achievements in their professional careers, yet they are rooted individuals, very humble people. I would like to introduce them briefly. They will be more introduced by what they say rather than what I read out of their bio. Let me go ahead. Dr. Uma Maheshwari Shankar, Principal HOD Philosophy, SIS College, Sion. She is a scholar of Indian philosophy and Vedanta with a huge volume of research publications, eminent scholar students, 12 research scholars, 5 MPhils and going. She has many research papers under her guidance. She's got major awards which has been announced. She's highly regarded in the International Circle of Scholars of Indian Philosophy, and her opinions are sought by policymakers India and abroad. Uma Maheshwari Madam, welcome. आप लोग सब्सटैंशियली यंग ऑडियंस हो. यंग ऑडियंस से आपको सुनना पड़ेगा ब्रिज का बात, जो ईस्ट और वेस्ट को, पुराने और नूतन को मिलाने वाला एक तरुण स्कॉलर डॉक्टर संघमित्रो चैटर्जी, फिजिसिस्ट हैं, पोस्ट डॉक्टरल फेलो हैं. इनकी पब्लिकेशंस इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे पब्लिकेशंस हुई हैं. कोविड में इन्होंने काम किया है. सॉलिड स्टेट फिजिक्स में बहुत सारा इनका काम चल रहा है. इनकी रिसर्च के बारे में इनके बायो में मिलेगा आपको. मेरा बोलने के लिए बहुत छोटा मुंह बड़ा बात बन जाएगा. Apart from that, he is a sincere and ardent scholar of Swami Vivekananda, Aurobindo, and he is deeply interested. इनकी जो पहुँच है, ये चाहते हैं कि ancient science of India and modern science of the world, इन दोनों की ब्रिज के लिए ये लोग काम कर रहे हैं. वेलकम डॉक्टर संघमित्रो चैटर्जी. अमी गनात्रा, इनके बारे में तो यंग लोगों ने सुना ही होगा. ये 2 वर्ड्स को स्ट्राइटल कर चुकी हैं. इनकी शुरुआत की करियर, शी इज़ एन इंजीनियर MBA फ्रॉम द टॉप इंस्टीट्यूशंस. शी हैड अ ह्यूज करियर इन कंसल्टिंग अक्रॉस 4 कॉन्टिनेंट्स. शी हैज़ मेड अ नेम फॉर herself in the corporate circle like anybody else can imagine. She is more or less given it all up. She has given herself to complete study of Indic studies, Sanskrit studies, epic के retelling के लिए चली है. She is a devout yoga practitioner, certified yoga instructor, स्टूडेंट ऑफ संस्कृत एंड इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम्स में इनकी बड़ी खोज चल रही है आज के डेट में. शी इज़ टॉट एंड स्पोकन योगा, इतिहासा, इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम्स, मल्टीपल फोरम्स में. प्रोफेशनल फ्रंट में इनकी 15 साल की करियर है, जो खैर अभी पीछे चला गया है. अभी उन्होंने पूरा टाइम डेडिकेट कर दिया है स्टडीइंग एंड शेयरिंग ट्रेजर्स फ्रॉम वास्ट प्रोफाउंड इंडिक ट्रेडिशंस. वेलकम अमी गनात्रा, प्लेजर टू हैव यू. लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट, मेजर रोहित चौधरी, रिटायर्ड, एक आर्मी के वेटरन हैं. ये कारगिल में इन्होंने एक्शन देखा. ही इज़ एन इंजीनियर, ही इज़ बीन अ टॉपर थ्रू आउट. उसके बाद में ही लेफ्ट आर्मी, took a sharp turn, came back into the technology world, where he worked with top-notch companies like IBM India, Reliance, where he led the Project Excellence Center in Geo Platforms Limited. He was awarded, he's attended management school in INSEAD, Singapore. He's a deeply meditative and introspective person. He's a very fastidious practitioner of yoga and meditation. And he's also equally interested in Vedantic systems. He's close with Jiddu Krishnamurti, Ramana Maharshi, and other Indian Vedantic scholarly systems. He took another career break after really reaching the top to the corporate world. And then he's taken over a the last village perhaps on the Indian border in Gangotri, where in COVID times a small school had gone into disuse. He took over the school, he's bringing it up, and you will be hearing a huge amount from him in this field of getting into education for the poorest and the weakest. Dr. Major Rohit Chaudhary, welcome on board. Thank you. Now, we'll have a simple format. Each panelist is given 3 minutes. I hope they'll stick to their time. They should have their watch. They will each give them their position on what cultural sovereignty is. After that, I will question them, and then the last session will be the question answer by the people. The format is I am a fly on the wall. These are the people, it is left up to us to question them in intelligent and sentient ways so that they get the subject out from their perspective. Let's go. Dr. Uma, your turn.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction and the topic to start with. Cultural sovereignty and pride. I want the youth to ask yourself a very important question. What it means to you personally, the freedom that is given to you in understanding what culture is. As Sundaresan has given an introduction about what India stands for as a synonym to the culture, culture is a growing and absolutely a dynamic phenomena. I don't look at it as something where you can connect a lot of things which come on your way with tradition, with religion, with rituals, with a lot of things that we connect with ourselves in our lifestyle. All of them put together is what we make ourselves or call ourselves as cultured, quote unquote, a word that we use it for ourselves as an identity. If the cultural identity has to be understood, comprehended properly, and also to look at it squarely in its way, you will see that it is not going in such a way that it has a completion by itself. I look at it more that it is an ongoing spiral manner. So on our way, we have gathered a lot of culture from the Upanishadic time, right from the Shankara's time, and later on with a lot of other wonderful scholars with the post-Vedantic sessions. And even now, we are creating. What India today is doing is trying to highlight this to the world, that we have something much to be proud of. That is where the pride comes in. So in the whole process, what the youth have to do is, you are not just going to ask for what is my culture, what is my role to identify myself into it, but in the process of learning, you will have to do a lot of unlearning, which is very important. In the process of unlearning a lot of things, which you will weed it away and say that this is not to me, and that is where the entire fountainhead of values, which is embedded in the culture of the country, which will come over. So whenever we talk about sovereignty, as Swayata used it, as autonomy, when we talk about it, autonomy always comes with responsibility. You cannot say, I just want the freedom and I leave it aside everything else. So as a culturally vibrant nation India is, we will have to talk about it in this spirit that I have a freedom, I will hold it on, and I also be responsible for what I'm talking about it and putting my nation in the front. That is very, very important. So the process of learning, unlearning and relearning, we can give a kind of an amalgamation. You're comprehensive, you're very cosmic, at the same time a microcosmic level. You can have that kind of a transformation. So I personally believe that it is a personal transformation is so much required in order to look forward to what the social upliftment or a social transformation can happen. And that can ever begin is when we understand there is an awareness about it, there is a conscious effort about it, not when somebody is telling to us. We have to ask ourselves that questioning entity, pariprashnena seveya is what Krishna has always said it. Ask, question and counter question it, and you will be able to find an answer to it. I think I kept my 3 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Uma. Let's hear from the young scientist scholar, Dr. Chatterjee.
So, thank you very much for considering me as an appropriate person for this conclave. So, what already Dr. Maheshwari has said, so I have nothing much more to say, but I must say that she has repeatedly told about the freedom, and nowadays there is a acrimonious debate whether there will be a freedom of speech or whether there will be a freedom or how to make the best use of the freedom of speech, or sometimes people are going beyond the limit of the freedom of speech. Let me say that it is Swami Vivekananda who first gave a clarion call that freedom is the song of the soul. Freedom is the song of the soul. So this very idea of freedom is there in our Vedantic culture. That freedom from what? Freedom from bondage. Freedom from what binds us to something that does not allow us to go out of this so-called mimicry that has been entered through the invasion of colonial rule and whatever. But let me assure you that is not freedom. Freedom is something that will take you out of the samsara and that will feel that you are one with the universe. Since I have gotten a chance, And it is a very noble effort by this institute administration that this kind of conclave they have arranged, and I do think it will have a long-term impact. And my sincere obeisance to Professor Bagla for this organization. And one thing which, when I was passing by this corridor and I was just entering in this auditorium, one particular thing which caught my attention, that there is a notice board, one full notice board, which was totally dedicated to celebrate the Kargil Vijay Divas. So this is a very big thing. Small amount of changes, little drops of water, little grains of sand make the mighty ocean and the pleasant land. It will definitely bring a revolution. And I must say that such kind of efforts, such kind of selfless efforts should continue by the institute. And one thing from here that I have brought today, because there are so many young faces that I am liking today, is this book. If you get some time, just to read this book, I vouch you, I request you, I urge all the youth to purchase this book, My India, the India Eternal. You will understand how Swami Vivekananda viewed India and how he presented India to the world. And it is in a very concise manner, it has written in an excellent manner how the foreigners were then influenced by the Indian culture. As Sundarasan ji just said, that they came to destroy our culture. And it was Swami Vivekananda who took India to the world, and the world accepted him as a cyclonic monk. So who came to destroy us, indeed accepted us as a cyclonic monk from India. So this book you can actually keep in your library in this institute, and student must be encouraged to read this book. That's my suggestion to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chatterjee. Let's move to Major Chaudhary.
Am I audible? Okay. Good afternoon and thank you for having me here. एक फौजी होने के नाते मेरा प्रैक्टिकल होना मेरा दायित्व है. So I will come down to defining what I understand of this topic in very, very practical words. And I also know that this is the after lunch session, so it's a challenge on the panelists to hold your attention. But anyway, listen to me. Sovereignty to me, or the dictionary meaning of the word is probably to confidently claim our rightful place. To confidently be able to claim, or in our case, reclaim the rightful place that our culture has, right? Somewhere, for historical reasons, it may have been diluted or lost or corrupted. So that is the first thing that we need to understand. This is about reclaiming our rightful place. But how do we reclaim? We will get to that. The next associated word here is pride. To be able to feel proud of something that I possess or I have created, I have to first know it, right? So to know it, I have to understand it. And so as we have a discussion like this, I think the onus on all of us, not just the panelists who are sitting here, but each one of the young minds here, is also to explore our culture, to understand, to know it. Only then will you be proud of it, and can you then reclaim what needs to be reclaimed, right? This does not require for us to get upset, for us to get slighted कि हमारे साथ बहुत बुरा हुआ, इतने 100 साल तक मुगल रहे और इतने साल तक अंग्रेज़ रहे. There is no need. इसके लिए कोई नारेबाजी की ज़रूरत नहीं है. इसके लिए without prejudice, without influence of the minds, of the great minds which our land has produced, if we can approach this topic without prejudice like Jiddu Krishnamurti, if you've heard that name, or with the dignity and unapologetic demeanor of Swami Vivekananda, which my co-panelists just talked about, or the depth and beauty that Adi Shankaracharya talked about 2,500 or 3,000 years ago, or a personality whom we all idolize, मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम भगवान श्री राम, जो कि आज से हज़ारों साल पहले हुए थे. अगर उस इक्वानिमिटी और उस कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ अगर हम इस टॉपिक को अप्रोच करेंगे, तो हम अपनी कल्चरल सॉवरेनिटी को रिक्लेम करेंगे. थैंक यू.
Ami ji, up to you now.
नमस्ते, जय श्री राम, जय श्री कृष्णा. तो मैं कंसल्टेंट रही हूँ एंड व्हेन वी मेक स्ट्रैटेजीज फॉर द क्लाइंट्स वी ऑलवेज आस्क व्हाट इज़ इन इट फॉर मी, मेरे लिए क्या. ठीक है, आप लोग कल्चर की बात कर रहे हो, सॉवरेनिटी की बात कर रहे हो, अब तो आई एम फ्री. ये कौन सा कल्चर, पास्ट, व्हाई डज इट मैटर टुडे, राइट. मैं तो ये पूछती थी, आई एम श्योर अ लॉट ऑफ यू आर आस्किंग दैट, राइट, कि अभी क्यों वी लिव इन अ मॉडर्न वर्ल्ड, वी वेयर मॉडर्न ड्रेसेस, अरे टॉक अबाउट टेक्नोलॉजी, ये सब क्या आप बकवास कर रहे हो. दिस वॉज वॉट आई हैड इन माइंड जब मैं आपकी उम्र की थी. एंड समथिंग हैपेंड अलॉन्ग द वे. मैं जब अब्रॉड गई, आई वॉज वर्किंग अब्रॉड, जैसे सर ने कहा था कि कुछ कुछ लोगों को हमको बहुत घूम फिर के अक्ल आती है कि भाई जो है वो यहाँ है, तो आई बिलोंग टू वन ऑफ दोज फुलिश कैटेगरीज, बट आई एम हैप्पी दैट आई वॉज देयर. तो जब मैं बाहर गई तब मैंने देखा कि मेरी टीम में वी हैड पीपल ऑफ 15 डिफरेंट नेशनैलिटीज़, 15 नेशनैलिटीज़, या. एंड इंटरेस्टिंगली जो जापानीज़ है ना वो एक तरीके से बिहेव करते थे, जो अमेरिकन है वो एक तरीके से बिहेव करते थे, जो इंडियंस थे, भले एक इंडियन मेरा कलीग था वो यूएस में बॉर्न हुआ था, वी हैड अ वेरी टिपिकल वे ऑफ बिहेविंग ऑल्दो वी वर बॉर्न इन डिफरेंट प्लेसेस. कोई भी गड़बड़ हो जाए ना, इफ देयर इज केओस, इंडियंस थ्राइव. यू ऑल नो, कुछ भी हो जाए, अरे देख लेंगे, जुगाड़ वी से, राइट. क्यों, what is it that makes me similar to the other Indian who's born maybe second generation in US? What was that? I'll tell you one more thing which was very, very distinct. We have Indian diaspora in lots of parts of the globe, right? बहुत सारे जगहों पर है, पर जहाँ पर भी गए हैं ना, कभी ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि हमने कहा नहीं सिर्फ मेरा ही रूल चलेगा, मैं तो बस ऐसे ही करूँगा, मैं बस वैसे ही करूँगा. नहीं, we have assimilated in those cultures. ऐसा क्यों? पता है, उसका उत्तर ना मुझे हमारे घरों में मिला. एंड आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ यू विल रिलेट टू इट. हमारे घरों में यू विल सी, पापा है वो बोलेंगे नहीं मैं तो हनुमान जी का भक्त हूँ, माँ बोलेंगी नहीं नहीं कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्णा, लड़का बोलेगा एथीस्ट, लड़की बोलेगी नहीं नहीं मेरे लिए तो काली माँ, छोटी लड़की होगी वो बोलेगी नहीं नहीं शिव जी. एंड वी ऑल लिव हैप्पीली टुगेदर. हम एक दूसरे को मार देते हैं. वाई? What is it that helps us accept the others so easily? That is the culture. That जुगाड़ is that culture कि we will survive. आज सुबह एक प्रेजेंटेशन हुआ था जिसमें एक बात आई थी एंटी फ्रेजाइल. ठीक है, एंटी फ्रेजाइल का अर्थ ये है कि कुछ भी हो जाए you stay strong. We have survived when other cultures have been wiped out. Greeks थे, Romans थे, Sumerians थे, कहाँ है आज सब? Why are we what we are? That spirit to fight, that is our culture and that has stayed. Now it is not just these things of feelings. There are practical values. And sir, let me take a couple of more minutes here to say कि इसमें पैसे की भी बात है. ठीक है, आप लोग सब घर पे हमको हल्दी वाला दूध देते हैं, हम क्या कहते हैं, नहीं नहीं फ्री का हल्दी का दूध हम लोग नहीं पीते. बट जब स्टारबक्स में टर्मरिक लाटे 500 रुपये देने को तैयार, उनको घर पे नहीं करेंगे. वाई सो? अच्छा, आई टेल यू अनदर एग्जाम्पल विच हैपेंड विथ मी. I was working for a German chemical company and we were about like 15 people in the leadership training program. तो बहुत खर्चा करके हम लोग को जर्मनी भेजा था to be a part of this leadership program. So after 3 days, there were out of those 20 people, there were 2 Indians. After 3 days, I walk up to the trainer and I was like, sir, आप जो सब बता रहे हो, I have studied this. We had the गीता में भी यही बात करते हैं. They talk about स्वभाव, they talk about what is your swadharma and all of that. So he didn't use those words. He made it in English, yeah. But I said, this is very relatable. But he did not use the word Indic knowledge or Gita at all. But when I asked him, he smiled. He's like, ma'am, do you know, I spent 4 years in Rishikesh studying Indic knowledge systems. And today, he was making tons of money out of it. And we Indians go and give those monies to learn what is ours. And that is why culture, knowing the culture matters. It is not just something in our head or something we feel proud about. It is something which will help us reclaim our place monetarily, physically and with respect on planet Earth. And let me give you one more last example. We saw COVID में क्या हुआ? There are countries which are greater than us. सबने vaccines बनाई थी, developed world ने. Did they give it to anybody else? They all stocked it for themselves. What did we do? We said, नहीं हमारे पास है, आप सबको मिलेगा. आज you have Africa and everybody saying कि जब no one stood for us, Bharat stood for us. Why? Sarvajan hitaya, sarvajan sukhaya. That is culture, and this culture can make immense difference in the world today. And that is why we should own it, we should know it, and we should be proud of it. Thank you so much.
एक ही बात कहूँगा, मैं जानता था मगर इन्होंने क्लियर कर दिया. कल्चर इज एवरीथिंग दैट डिफाइंस अस, एवरीथिंग वी आर. जो कुछ हम हैं वो हमारा सदाचार है, हमारा कलाचार है. दैट्स इट, मैटर ओवर. आई गेट बैक टू बीइंग अ फ्लाई ऑन द वॉल. इसी से पकड़ूंगा कि भी हम अलग कैसे हैं दूसरों से, और हमारी वीकनेस क्या है, डिफेंसिवनेस क्या है. डॉक्टर उमा को मैं डायरेक्टली पूछने वाला हूँ. अभी से बच्चों, मैं तुम्हारे तरफ से क्वेश्चन पूछूंगा, तुम्हारे जैसे पूछूंगा, और इनको जवाब देना पड़ेगा. एक बात बताइए डॉक्टर उमा, कॉमन नैरेटिव है, हम लोग कहीं चले जाएं, सिंगापुर चले जाएं, जर्मनी चले जाएं, कहीं चले जाएं, एक गोरे ने उठा के पूछ दिया, हिंदुइज्म को नीचे कर दिया. कहीं ना कहीं नैरेटिव हिंदुइज्म इज अ रिग्रेसिव, डिवाइसिव, बैकवर्ड रिलीजन. आई एम अ सेकेंड ईयर ओल्ड स्टूडेंट ऑफ केसी कॉलेज. मैं क्या जवाब दूं? And what is my problem? Why is it that I am unable to answer it? And what should I answer it? Are you with me, students, on this? Let's hear a bigger yes. Yes. Thank you.
Taking from the strand of what Ami just made it, the assimilation of all the thoughts, what am I? Ours is a very unique country where culture, religion, philosophy, literature, we talk about all of them almost in such a similar tone and put all of them in one basket. And that's one of the reasons why we have not able to get into it squarely, if I can say, as the youth you are asking this question through the mouth of Sundaresan, is because you have not even identified, I would use, not you as such, we have not identified ourselves with that culture. It is, identity of India stands for what? The philosophy is very old, yes, right? And all this, just one example which she at the end made it so proud to all of us is the nature of giving. We have learnt in our Sanskriti is that the joy of giving, not joy of receiving. It's always that whenever we try to give something to others, the receiver is happy. But only in our families, in our culture, the giving itself, the giver is also very happy. It's another thing is when we talk about the orthodox systems in Indian philosophy, we call it as darshana. All the other systems in the world, Mesopotamian, the Greeks, the European, all the civilizations call their philosophy as a philosophy. In India, we call it as a darshana. In darshana, we use the word as, it's a two-ended arrow like. Like हम मंदिर में जाते हैं कि it's not just I am seeing the God. We also have a belief that the God has seen me. It is a two-way. Just घर में जब आते हैं कि we ask दर्शन हुआ आपका, दर्शन is it's a connect where both of us are happy about it. This is where I want the youth to understand it cannot be a one-way traffic for you to go and grab some knowledge from anywhere else and own it up. It is what we have already with us. If we can have an identity with it and take it up, I think we can stand keeping our head high. In all this, the cultural sovereignty can come when we are loaded with all those little values, small things in your life, what your parents or your grandparents would have taught you, and you have not given much importance to it, and the teachers in the college are reminding you about it, and still we are not acknowledging about it. Time now is for you to recognize, acknowledge, and own it up. Unless we own it up and have a sense of belonging, we will not have it, sir.
Thank you, doctor. Now we'll go to the younger person here. Say I am a student of KC College, year 3. Tell me, as a scientific researcher, how do you view the old Indian knowledge systems and their contextuality for those times and their current period, contextuality of those very systems, however you view them or adapt them to today? The contextuality of old Indian knowledge systems is what I, as a youngster, would like to know. Can you give the answer?
So this question I will answer through the views of some eminent scientists who are called the so-called father of today's modern physics. So when we start with modern physics, the first name which comes to our mind is Albert Einstein, right? So what is your views? So Indian culture is mostly spiritual. It has a high overlap with spirituality. Now what is your views? What are your views? Was Einstein a religious person or he was an atheist?
Anybody? Was Einstein an atheist or a religious person?
Why? Because you know that God does not play dice with the universe. Just one statement. Now I will counter your statement that he once wrote in a letter to a philosopher that the concept of God itself is a representative, is a product or expression of human weakness. And religious practices are childish superstitions. So was Einstein a hypocrite? That on one hand he is saying that God does not play. So what kind of God he used to believe in? So now comes to the context of the Indian culture. Now concentrate on what was his views on Indian philosophy when he talks about the Bhagavad Gita. About Bhagavad Gita, Einstein directly says, when I read the Bhagavad Gita, it is evidence that he used to read it and reflect about how God has created the universe. Everything else seems to be superfluous. Going further extent to one of his students, he says that so I may not be quoting him word to word. I apologize for that, but something he tried to say like this, that I have made the Bhagavad Gita as the main source of my inspiration for scientific research, for scientific investigation. And also, it has guided me for formulation of my theories. So what is that God he used to believe in? And there are numerous scientists, probably nowadays become the Robert Oppenheimer, the founder of nuclear bomb. Or also he is well known for his Born-Oppenheimer approximation, and also Schrödinger, who highly applauded, who highly held the oneness given by our Shastras, given by the Vedanta. So here comes the strength of Indian culture. Let me tell you very strongly that while any culture, not to offend anyone, that while the rest of the world was concentrated on an imaginary God, that you need to presume an imaginary God, the Indian philosophy, the Vedantic philosophy gave 6, if you see there are 6 different schools of Vedanta, starting from Sankhya to Vedanta. From Sankhya to Vedanta there are 6 schools, and Vedanta first said that look into oneself. Who you are? Who am I? What is the reality behind me? And it defines 3 different entities, that is Brahma, Jiva and Jagat. And it relates. What is the relation between the 3? And nowhere it says that Brahma is the God. It says that Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. The Taittiriya Upanishad, and today David Bentley Hart, one of the PhD of University of Miami in religious theology, he says that up till now I have encountered this as the most accurate definition of God, that it is your existence. Adi Shankaracharya says, Yaiva asnirakarta tasyaiva atmasan. No one can reject, no one can deny that self. So self means Atman. In different schools of Indian philosophy, somewhere it is called as a Satchidanand Atman, Satchidanand Brahma, Sadashiva. But it looks into what we are. What is our being? So that is the superiority of Indian thought process, that it adopts a logical way rather than presuming something imaginary, something supernatural, something superstitious. So that is what my views can bridge this modern science. The way science is what? Is a way of thought. Science can change tomorrow. Also, Indian philosophy has evolved. Even this Vedanta has evolved as Advait, Vishishtadvait, Dvaitadvait, and so on. And you also can study the Vedanta and you also come up with a thought process. So it is always something which is evolving. And Indian philosophy gives the liberty of this evolution. So that is the beauty And that is the connection between the approach of modern science versus the approach of ancient Indian philosophy, my belief.
Very precocious for a young man. He's just 32, and I hope to God he goes long. Thank you very much, Dr. Charshi. Now come back to Fauji साहब. ये तो मेरा पर्सनल क्वेश्चन है इनसे, आपके तरफ से नहीं, मैं इनको पूछना है. मैं लिख के लाया हूँ क्योंकि पूछने में चूक नहीं होनी चाहिए. You have 3 successful identities, or may I call it personalities. Soldier, one who does relentless service, dares death, knows no profit motive. B, a corporate citizen whose first motive is unsparingly profit and nothing else. Both these are extremely Rajasic, aggressive traits. And now you've taken on a new one. You're a mothering nurturer, come teacher of the weakest and the poorest and the farthest of our Indian land. Now just tell me, what is this common psychological thread here? And what part of Indic cultural values or cultural ethos or cultural system that contributes to such holistic individuals? Because I absolutely believe they are a totally holistic individual. What contributes in the Indian system or psychology to this? Please let us know.
Thank you. Thank you for that compliment. I don't know whether it is right to admit the holistic. Maybe I'll try and answer the question more on the basis of my life experiences. And as you said, sir, I have been through three distinct stages. And just so that I can wrap it up in 2-3 minutes, I'll, as a school boy, I went to a highly westernized school. So much so that I was taught to have my meals with a fork and knife without making the cluttering noise with the cutlery. तो हमारी स्कूल में इसकी ट्रेनिंग होती थी जब 200 बच्चे बैठ के खाना खाते थे और कोई गेस्ट आया हुआ होता था. There was supposed to be no noise even when 200 of us sat together in a small dining hall and were eating our Western cuisine that was laid out on the plate. So that with that upbringing, I was told that a civilized man eats silently. That was wired in my brain. बहुत सारी अच्छी चीज़ें भी थी, बहुत ये भी अच्छी चीज़ थी शायद, और अच्छी और बुरे पे we will go later there. But there was immense rigor, there was a lot of discipline. I had to get up at 5:30 every morning in the Dehradun cold, whether it was snowing up there in the hills, summer come hail come winter. And as a result of that, that rigor and discipline, the systems worked, the processes worked, and there was efficiency in the system, which are very, very Western traits. Even today, when we look up to the Western world, it is because of the efficiency that their systems have. The places are clean, the traffic lights work, people follow the rules, and that is what attracts us there. And this, even Swami Vivekananda acknowledges this, that is very much needed to bring balance in the world. Now come to the other part. I move to the next part of my life. I become an army officer. The war happens in Kargil, and there are veterans sitting here who will tell you that in extreme situations like that, you get, you're facing life and death with your men. And the respect that your men get of you, or the reason why they obey you, is not because of the uniform you wear. It is not because यहाँ पे स्टार लगे हुए हैं मेरे यूनिफॉर्म पे और मैं मेजर साहब हूँ इसलिए वो मेरी बात सुन रहे हैं. वो मेरी बात इसलिए सुनते हैं क्योंकि उस यूनिफॉर्म को जिस इंसान ने पहना है उसको रिस्पेक्ट करते हैं या नहीं. So it is the human who is wearing that uniform that gets the respect because of the traits that you display. So while the outward, facade that you build, which is very much a Western way of life, I would say, is important. It is required to get work done. एक leader होना चाहिए, एक major साहब होना चाहिए, एक corporate में you need those fancy designations to be able to get work done. But that is the outer facade. Now, a few years later, I walked out of the army, came to Bombay, became a corporate man overnight, almost over one weekend. And the process of dismantling of that facade had to begin. Now, people still call me Major Saab, but they were not giving me the respect of a Major Saab because I was a Major Saab. Now I had to build my own career brick by brick all over again, starting in some industry that I had no clue about. And that started a journey of dismantling the outer and looking at the inner. वैसे करते करते 20 साल निकल गए और अब एक ऐसा स्टेज आया जब मैंने सोचा कि अब करियर में भी मुझे मज़ा नहीं आ रहा है, अब मुझे कुछ करना है, समाज के लिए कुछ करना है, देश के लिए कुछ करना है. मोर लाइक टू आई नीड टू बिल्ड द नेशन इन सम वे, बिकम एन एजुकेटर, इवन इफ इट इज़ child by child, educate a few children. And that is when the outer had to be completely melted. Now this identity that I had built for 40, 50 years had no meaning, because now only the inner mattered. So this journey from investing the first few years or the first few phases of my life to build an external identity, to establish it, to sort of make my place in the world, and then realize that only when you melt it completely. आज मैं 100 बच्चों को पढ़ाता हूँ और जब हम वहाँ पे बैठ के खाना खाते हैं तो बिल्कुल आवाज़ नहीं होती है, और वो इसलिए नहीं होती है बिकॉज अ सिविलाइज्ड मैन इज सपोज टू ईट लाइक दैट. आई टेल देम कि वेदों के हिसाब से जब खाना खाते हैं तो बिल्कुल आवाज़ नहीं होनी चाहिए, ठीक है. और सो दैट इज़ द जर्नी ऑफ माई लाइफ एंड दैट इज द फूड. सो थैंक यू.
मज़ा आ गया, एकदम मज़ा आ गया. एक और ताली दे दो बॉस. बनती है ताली. अभी समय आ गया अमी गनात्रा का. अंग्रेजों से हम लड़ नहीं सकते, आप लड़ सकती हैं, बताओ मेरे को. वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड जो है, दे कॉल देयर ओन रिलीजियस कल्चरल नैरेटिव एज फैक्ट एंड एविडेंस बेस्ड हिस्ट्री, और बाकी सारे कल्चर्स को वो फैंटास्टिकल मिथ्स बोलते हैं. सच ही बोलते हैं कि तुम लोग झूठ बोल रहे हो. दे कॉल आवर कल्चरल नैरेटिव्स एज फॉल्सहुड्स, एंड हम सब इसको मानते हैं. लाते क्या है, हल्दी 600 रुपये में पीते हैं और घर की दूध नहीं पीते. हम इतने अपने आप को सहमे से क्यों पा रहे हैं, और इससे निकलने का कोई उपाय है या निकलना चाहिए? इस पे जो आपको मन करे दिल से बोलिए कि ये नैरेटिव को करा क्या जाए और हम स्लेवरी से बाहर कैसे निकलें.
सबसे पहले तो बात ये है कि वाई इज़ दिस स्ट्रेस ऑन कॉलिंग अदर्स फॉल्स. जैसे मैंने आपको पहले बताया, वी आर अ कल्चर विच हैज़ ऑलवेज एक्सेप्टेड डाइवर्सिटी, राइट. पारसी केवल भारत में आए और यहाँ पर वो रहे. This is many years ago. We did not have a secular constitution at that time, right? They were running away from Persia. They found shelter here. Syrian Christians, they were running away from what is present-day Armenia, Syria. They found shelter here when the entire civilization was getting devastated. तो ये हमारे में डाइवर्सिटी तो रही है. हमने कभी किसी को फॉल्स गॉड्स या फॉल्स सिविलाइजेशन नहीं कहा. बट देन व्हाई दिस अर्ज, व्हाई दिस नेसेसिटी फॉर सर्टेन कल्चर्स टू कॉल अस फॉल्स? देयर इज़ अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रीज़न टू इट. और हम वो रीज़न समझेंगे ना तो हमको उनकी मेंटालिटी समझ में आ जाएगी. दे नीड टू कॉल अस फॉल्स to feel that they are true, and the reason for that is this. जो we believe in the Indian दार्शनिक system, we believe कि समय जो है that is not linear, है ना. That is why when our people die, we don't call rest in peace. No. We don't rest in peace. We take punarjanma, right? So there is no resting. You go and you come back. So ours is a circular time frame. And our cycles go on for years and years and years together. समय तो बहुत लंबा है, हम महाकाल कहते हैं. अभी संघमित्रों जी ने साइंस की बात कही. अभी नई मूवी आई है ओपनहाइमर, उसमें भी हम गीता का देखते हैं. Even they have been inspired, be it Tesla, be it Oppenheimer, be it whoever, they have been inspired by Indian darshanik system, right? But now to validate their own बिलीफ सिस्टम्स विच सेज कि अर्थ जो है, पृथ्वी जो है, वो एक्स नंबर ऑफ ईयर्स में उसका जन्म हुआ है. ओके, दिस इज व्हाट दे बिलीव, दैट द अर्थ इज बॉर्न, आई डोंट रिमेंबर, 3,000 साल पहले. नाउ इफ दे बिलीव दैट अर्थ हैज ओनली 3,000 ईयर्स, इज ओनली 3,000 ईयर्स ओल्ड, how will they say that our culture, which goes back 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 years, is true? Because if they agree that this is true, what will happen to their belief system? खत्म, एक झटके में खत्म. और जहाँ तक साइंस की बात आई है ना, अगेन लेट मी मेक दिस वेरी क्लियर. मैं जो भी कुछ कह रही हूँ, आई एम नॉट सेइंग दिस कि वो सही है, वो गलत है, ये अच्छा है, ये बुरा है. नहीं, मैं इस एंगल से नहीं कह रही हूँ. सो प्लीज़ डोंट टेक इट इन दैट मैनर. या But all I will still say is कई बार हमको कहा जाता है, like a friend of mine used to have these arguments with me. He was a Brazilian. I was living in Sao Paulo at that time. He's like, you guys worship some god with elephant head. You worship all these things. These are all false gods. This is not even scientific. ठीक है? I told him, okay, this is not scientific. I agree. How is immaculate conception scientific? And he had nothing to say. Because when we talk about religion and belief system, there is an aspect of Shraddha which you will have to involve. And this is true for everybody. So when people say कि आपका scientific नहीं है, we don't have to become defensive at all. Let us continue our study and research for science. That's the beautiful part of Indic knowledge systems. हमारे समाज में ये कभी नहीं हुआ कि कोई scientist है who has said something और उसको मार दिया गया हो. कभी नहीं हुआ. But see what happened to Galileo and Copernicus in Europe not even 500 years ago. Galileo was punished, some others were killed. Why? Because they said earth is round and not flat. Even today there are flat earthers in the western world जो कहते हैं नहीं जो earth है वो flat है. हमारे में we've never had that issue, right? Never ever. Because science, संस्कृति, culture जैसे मैम ने कहा, it has not been different. It has been part of our civilization. हमारी संस्कृति का हिस्सा है. अब जहाँ तक narratives की बात है, let me make one thing clear for the information of all of you, right? Generally हम देखते हैं कि जो अलग अलग धर्म है, religions हैं, उनकी एक एक पुस्तकें होती है. वैसे अगर कोई कहे कि हिंदू धर्म की कौन सी पुस्तक है, तो आप क्या कहोगे? हाँ, जोर से बच्चे. पता है भगवत गीता इज नॉट अ स्टैंड अलोन पुस्तक. भगवत गीता तो महाभारत का हिस्सा है. Only Vedas? What about Bhagavad Gita then? So the thing is, we don't have one book. We have a library of books, which many and many and many. And there is a very clear categorization. This is something you should all know. हमारे ऋषियों ने ही हमारी पुस्तकों का बहुत अच्छा categorization किया है. You know which is the topmost layer? Shruti and Smriti. Shruti includes Veda Upanishad. Smriti includes most other things. Now, what are those most other things? Dharma Shastras, which tell us how to live. Yeah? What are the do's, what are the don'ts? It includes the darshan, जो हम वेद, जो हम योग, सांख्य, मीमांसा ये सब जो कहते हैं. It includes what is we called itihas and puran. Okay. Now remember, itihas, puran are used together, but they are not the same. Itihasa. Itihas, because my topic and my subject is Mahabharata Ramayana, I am even more passionate about the Itihas part of it. Because Itihasa is that which happened, which means according to our parampara and our traditions, only two granthas are called absolute history and there is no doubt about it, Mahabharata and Ramayana. These are not mythologies, these are histories. Only that our history had a purpose. It was not just about timeline. Our history had a purpose. And there is a whole definition, which I say everywhere. I'll say it here also. Dharma artha kama mokshanam upadesham samanvitam purvavrittam kathayuktam itihasam prachakshate. Purvavrittam. It has happened in the past. Kathayuktam. Narrated in a katha format. And why? So that we learn the lessons of life for our life from the life of our ancestors. This is our itihas. So let nobody tell you these are just essay stories. No, these are itihas of our ancestors for us to learn from. Our rishis were very clear. Why do we have to believe anybody else? Thank you so much.
Dr. Uma, I must ask you this question. All of us say, Bharat is a melting pot of so many cultures, this, that and the other. ये जो एक मदरहुड स्टेटमेंट है, मैं 20 साल का हूँ, नहीं हूँ, शायद हूँ. इसका मतलब क्या? What do we actually mean when we say Bharat is a melting pot, perennial melting pot? क्या चीज़ है ये melting pot and किस सही से यूनिक है? ऐसा मैं बोलता हूँ कि और कोई melting pot नहीं है, मेरा ही melting pot है. Why? Is there some element of truth to that?
What comes to my mind is, as with India, when we connect, as the earlier time that I was given, I was telling you about the culture, religion, tradition, ritualism, literature, anthropology, mythology, all of them put together, plus the element of spirituality is also included in that. I'll just tell you, once it so happened, I'll culminate it with the melting point, okay? Once it so happened that God went for a walk, and in the opposite direction, man was coming. At one point, both of them met and said, "Ha, my creation." Could you get it? Both said, "My creation." Not that we have the culture of the others that always the God is the one who created. I don't have to name it in all the other religious traditions. We have as though it has been literally made out of, like a pot is made out of a clay. Ours, we call it as a manifestations. This is an avatar that we talk about it. So as many gods we have, whether it is elephant head or it is 16 hands or vehicles or without a vahana, with vahana, male, female, fat god, thin god, good god, whatever it is. Strong god, or no, we don't have a weak god, isn't it? We don't have a Kachalimbo type of gods. We don't have it, right? When we talk about these kind of combinations, where does it come from? That is the culture of India. I can have my own understanding of the power that I am seeking in what I am actually looking at it. So it could come through the literature of the people. It can come through the writings of the rishis. It can come from all the literature that we have spoken about in various forms. Like Ami was talking about the itihasa which has happened. Yes, we don't have a doubt about it. Why do we even ask a question on that? It's a question comes only when we are allowed even in the Upanishads, if you look at it, all of them have the sense of debates and discussions and questioning part of it as a compulsory way of learning. Those were the tools given to them for learning, which is so important. Now the question is, why is ours is constantly a melting point? Because we are, over a period of time, we are seeking a lot of wealth of knowledge, a treasure house of wisdom that we have collected it, and it is still going on and on and on. We don't have something to stop it and say, this is where the Indian philosophy ends. It is not so. Shankara may have spoken about Advaita Vedanta in a big way, like he quoted about Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, all that from the Upanishads and all. But Vivekananda made it more simple. He knew that 100 years back, he knew that this generation will not read those books. So he made all of them so practical and called the whole thing as a practical Vedanta. Now tomorrow we may have something. We are not going to take out the essence. Like morning, the sir made it so clear that wherever we may go, everywhere, the umbilical cord, the fulcrum is here. Once we hold on to that fulcrum, that umbilical cord here, and hold the treasure, that wisdom here, we won't be able to lose all of them. So the melting point culture is that we are able to generate, assimilate all of them with us, and it is a continuous process. It doesn't stop. It's like a cascading stream, and it is flowing, and all of us are bathing in it every day in and out. One of the very important things that comes to me after listening to my co-panelists is, one of the most beautiful things that the Indians or we can be proud of is the value of Rina, which is so important. Rita and Rina, we talk about it. Rita, I'm not talking, scientists are around. We know the cosmic order. We know at the timely, now the global warming is worrying us and we are going with a different way of understanding it. How do we make the seasons and all of them come on time, therefore we are able to do it? That's one part of it. The other is where each one of us sitting in this hall can take it up is, whom do we owe? Whom are we indebted to? Where is the sense of gratitude? Where is the sense of loyalty and the sense of belongingness? This Rina is important. In our Indian ethics, in the Purana, they have said about 3 Rinas. We have a Deva Rina, we have a Rishi Rina, right? And we have the Pitra Rina. We are indebted to our ancestors, we are indebted to the Rishis who have given all this knowledge. Otherwise, where would we ever go back on, right? And the Deva Rina, not defined which God, you name it. Like just now I said the two, God and the man meets, that's all it is. But to it, Vivekananda added Manavarana. We are indebted to every individuals who have come in our lives, we are indebted to them. If that sense of gratitude is there, I think that is where we have the essence of Indianness that I'm talking about, which is very unique. I'm not saying the other culture or other country or the other people do not have those kind of values. They do have it. We do respect all of them. But we need to highlight it. I'll just conclude, Surendra. Just as a child, when I was 8 or 10 years old, when I was taken to Tamravarani to have a nice bath in the river, my mother said, don't step into the river. Hold on. Take permission from the river. Pray and then get into it. I doubt whether the Britisher will do it for Thames. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Doctor. Now we turn our attention, the second question, to the young scientist. Tell me, what is the best striking balance between science and Indian knowledge systems and wisdom traditions? How do we balance? Tell this young audience, we need science, we have this treasure. We need to know both perhaps. How do we balance it in today's life?
So one perfect example that comes to my mind right now is the historic conversion. So that's just a conversion that changed the Indian history, that made a revolution in the Indian history between Swami Vivekananda and Jamsetji Tataji. Are you aware? How many of you are aware? Raise your hands. So I will tell in very briefly that you should be aware that that was in my opinion, that is the first modern scientific revolution in India, and that happened in a ship which was traveling from Japan somewhere to Vancouver, Canada, and both were traveling there. So Jamsetji Tata was going to Chicago for taking, and so when Swamiji asked him, why are you going there? He said that I want an industrial revolution there and I need to establish a steel plant and I am going to take the technology from there. And Swamiji said that it's a good idea, but why don't you establish a science institute in order to elucidate the science of production? And when youngsters will be understanding the science of productions, the production will be indigenous, and thereby India will stand on its own feet. And years after, in this context, so Swamiji was a completely spiritual person, but see his views on indigenizing our scientific merit, of inculcating the scientific merit. And years after, in a letter Jamsetji Tata is writing, that I can still remember the conversation, and what he is writing, the galvanizing into the culture, galvanizing into this society, our ancient culture. Probably he was thinking so much of steel, and thereby he was so obsessed with, it's my interpretation, so obsessed with galvanization just to remove rust from the society that India got it. Now the thing is that this is how we balance, because if we want to move forward, we must need our background. We must be proud of our background. If you do not know your background, and if you do not respect yourself, there's no point of talking about being progressive, right? And here I would like to make a point that there are two extremes in the Indian society. A few years back, somebody claimed that, okay, this Heisenberg's uncertainty principle was invented in India. So this is one extreme, and the one who is completely denying it is another extreme. So Heisenberg, Einstein, and all, they praised our culture, they praised the process of thought by the Indian sages. That's it. That is the matter of pride. And the other thing, what they have invented, give them the credit and have the collaboration. So here comes the very important conclusion of Vivekananda's Chicago speech, that a plant, while growing, it takes the air, it takes the water, it takes the soil. But does the plant itself become soil or water? So thereby one will grow by identifying their individual customs and culture, but do not mimic others. It will grow by itself by assimilating all the good things. So that is how I think there may be a strike balance, that in a nutshell, Indian thought process gives a logical approach to know the inner world, the very essence of our existence. And the Western thought process, or the modern side, not the Western thought process, India has also that time, for example, Meghnad Saha, Satyendranath Bose, so they have also contributed a lot to that time. And if you think, in the time of oppression, there was so much of scientific merit within India, that they give, once you know your existence, how to live in the secular world. So that is the balance, in my opinion. Thank you.
You must give a good hand. He's just 32. He's talking about stuff which is huge amount of gravitas, God bless him. Thank you. I'll finish with this round. After that, there'll be one more round, and there'll be enough time for question and answer. We're going absolutely according to schedule. Mir Sahab, versatility in temperament, okay, and leadership, दोनों चाहिए. आपके लाइफ में तो दिखता है, कईयों के लाइफ में होगा। हिंदुस्तानी सभ्यता में, वैल्यू सिस्टम में, अपब्रिंगिंग में क्या चीज़ है जो वर्सटिलिटी ला सकता है, साथ ही लीडरशिप क्वालिटी भी ला सकता है। कई वर्सटाइल लोग हैं जो लीडर्स नहीं हैं, जो कई लीडर्स जो वर्सटाइल नहीं हैं, कहीं ना कहीं एक है। व्हाट इज इट इन द इंडियन सिस्टम अकॉर्डिंग टू यू actually promotes this?
Sir, your questions are actually so flattering that I take a while to recover from from the. But anyway, I will make an attempt. And I think Wagla ma'am, I think I should be paid for giving this answer, क्योंकि मैं आप लोगों के देहरादून जाने के और आने के पैसे बचा रहा हूँ, ठीक है। तो मैं बताता हूँ कि जब एक 20 साल का नौजवान, 20-22 साल का, and with the permission of senior veterans here, when we pass out, during our passing out parade, we pass through a portal, and there is something written there which gets embedded into our hearts and minds for many, many years. And of course, this is coined by a British general, but it says that please listen to me carefully. Huh? I'm going to charge money for this next time, not this time. The safety, honor, and welfare of your country comes first, always, and every time. Okay? Safety, honor, and welfare of your country comes first, always, and every time. The next, because we are joining an organization as officers, it says the safety, honor, and welfare of the men you command comes next. And the last one is the most beautiful part, which says the safety, honor, your own safety, honor, and welfare comes last, always, and every time. Okay? So we grow up with this idea embedded in our heads that the safety, honor, and welfare of my country is the foremost. And now superimpose on it जो हमारा भारतीय तरीका है उसको देखने का, जिसमें कि हम भारतवर्ष को अपनी माँ के समान मानते हैं. So now the element of a mother and sacrificing my life for the safety, honor, and welfare of my mother comes, in which there can be no compromise. And which is why you find young people, young men, like many of my friends, seniors, elders, and juniors, who have willingly, we have hugged like brothers during the war, and they have gone on to give their lives. Some of them come back on stretchers, some of them never came back. So that's a reality, and none of us ever question it. तो जब हम ज़िंदगी के दूसरे पहलुओं में भी आते हैं तो अपनी मदर का जो दर्जा है वो कंट्री को हमेशा दे के रखते हैं. And it has been, I'm not saying this so much to flatter myself as you would, but it has been naturally a part of the wiring that we have been. The next one, please, there was one of the greatest scholars that this land has produced, which was Adi Shankaracharya. He talked about exploring this land. At 32 years of age, on foot, he walked from the place where he was born in Kaladi in Kerala to Kedarnath, up there. He has gone to Dwarka and Jagannath Puri twice over. And he died at the age of 32, but he had traversed all this land. Why did he do that? He did that to let people know that you will not understand Bharatvarsh unless you have seen Bharat with those eyes, you will not know. So any talk of culture or history or heritage without that knowledge is not, is only superficial. तो यहाँ पे जो young लोग बैठे हैं, मैं उनसे यही अर्ज करूँगा कि अगला वीकेंड आता है तो आप जरूर जाइए, गोवा भी जाइए, अलीबाग भी जाइए, लेकिन जो हमारी संस्थाएं हैं, जो बनारस है, जो गंगोत्री है जहाँ मैं काम करता हूँ, come to those places and see with your own eyes what this country has to offer. Otherwise you will not know. Otherwise you will never know. And the last bit which may sound a little, the young minds may take a while to accept that idea, but at some, up to a point you can try your best as a leader, as any role that you fulfill in your life. But at some point, there will be things beyond your control. And at that point, you have to surrender to God. And that's a very important part, because without that faith, you will not be able to do your best. And when you don't do your best, you will not be able to achieve what you're capable of achieving. So remember these three things. I will just quickly summarize them. Country comes first, travel to see it, and have faith in God after you've tried your best. Thank you so much.
Coming in, there is enough time. Please bear with us. These guys are really inspiring me. Thank you. Yeah. अमी, उम्र हो गया मुझे, और this egregious, absolutely egregious intrusion of the colonials into our lives for 200 odd years, it pricks me even today. Recontextualizing, retelling our epics is what you're doing, and God bless you for that. इसको करते हुए आज भी लोग आराम से बोलते हैं, there is a section of our intellectual elite or whatever thing, कि भाई महाभारत रामायण जो है, it is a casteist, gender-based, sexist, religious kind of excess है ये टेम्पलेट ही डिवाइसिव है, ये टेम्पलेट ही गलत है, ऐसे ठोक ठोक के बोल रहे हैं छाती। और आप हो कि रिकॉन्टेक्चुअलाइज कर रहे हो, 4 कॉन्टिनेंट में रह चुके हो, आधे अंग्रेज आप खुद हो सेंसिबिलिटी में, तो कैसे करोगे इसको काउंटर? बताइए। सही पूछा मैंने? सही पूछा? थैंक यू।
अच्छा, सबसे पहले तो मैं ये कहूँगी कि मैं रिकॉन्टेक्चुअलाइज कर ही नहीं रही हूँ। I do not retell or recontextualize. That is what people have been doing, unfortunately, for so long. And that is why you hear what you hear about text being casteist, misogynist, वगैरह वगैरह. Because as I said, I am like anybody sitting here. I had my own questions and my own doubts, right? मैं देखो गुजराती हूँ, धंधो, ठीक है? धंधा हम लोग सीधा पूछते हैं, मारू सू, मारा किटला, ठीक है? What is in it for me? Very simple. अगर मेरे को काम का नहीं है तो फ़ायदा क्या है ये सब करके, ठीक है? But then when you realize कि इसमें फ़ायदा है, वो फ़ायदा है कैसे पता चलेगा? Only when you know what the text have, right? So my job is not to recontextualize. My job is to study and tell for what it is. Because I do not believe कि अगर पहले कुछ गलत था तो we have to justify it and continue it today. No, I don't say that. Okay. Interestingly, our texts also don't say that. Our texts say everything is desha kala patra contextual. It depends on the situation. Everything that you see or what you are taught depends on the situation. This is what the texts say. I am not saying. Okay. But now, let me tell you why it is important to know the text for what they are. Do I have time to narrate a story? Okay. So this is what I love to do. हम सब ने महाभारत देखा है इन सम फॉर्मेट. वी नो द्रौपदी के साथ बहुत अत्याचार हुआ, बिचारी. दैट इज ऑलवेज व्हाट वी टॉक अबाउट हर, राइट? अच्छा, नाउ डिड समथिंग हैपन दैट shouldn't have happened to her? For sure. But is the story only about her victimhood? She never sees herself as a victim. And I am not recontextualizing or making this up. I'm just going to tell you an incident from Mahabharata. This happens when the Pandavas are in Vanvas. वनवास हो चुका है, पांडव, द्रौपदी, वो सब लोग वनवास में हैं. कृष्ण और सत्यभामा, you know who is सत्यभामा? Who is सत्यभामा? Krishna's wife, correct. So Satyabhama and Krishna, they come to meet Draupadi and the Pandavas in the jungle. अच्छा, so जो लड़के हैं वो तो अपने गपशप में लग जाते हैं और सत्यभामा और द्रौपदी अपनी बातों में लग जाती हैं. सत्यभामा कुछ देर बाद द्रौपदी से पूछती हैं कि यार सखी, मुझे एक बात बताओ, तुम्हारे पास ऐसा कौन सा वशीकरण मंत्र है जिससे तुमने ये 5 पतियों को एकदम कंट्रोल में रखा है? वशीकरण मंत्र जानते हो आप क्या होता है? वो मंत्र बूत्र करके डाल दो तो फिर वो हमेशा आप जो कहे वही करेंगे, ठीक है? So that is what she says कि what is it that you have? Do you have a mantra that you have used, some jadoo tona you've done on the Pandavas, that all the 5 patis of yours, they always do what you say. They say tava mukha preksha nityam. They are always looking at your face, admiringly looking at your face, and are willing to do whatever you tell them to do. मेरा तो एक पति है, still doesn't listen to me. What have you done? And Draupadi says, Satya, there is no Vashikaran mantra. But you are right. My husbands respect me a lot. They listen to whatever I tell them to do. But you know, the reason for that is not any Vashikaran mantra. The reason of that is the way I have lived my life as the queen of Indraprastha. And then there is a Draupadi Satyabhama Samvad which comes in Vanaparva, where Draupadi talks about her life as the queen of Indraprastha. जब इतने साल वो इंद्रप्रस्थ में थे, तभी she says that of course the usual, yeah, she would wake up before everybody, sleep after everybody, take care of the husbands and in-laws and all of that. But she says, in this palace of ours, because it was a royal palace, we would have lakhs and lakhs of people who would come to eat. Okay, so it was like a huge project that was undertaken every day. So to manage all that, there were lots of servants. She says, I knew each and every servant, which were in thousands by name. I knew how much work was done. I knew how much work was pending. I also knew if the servants had eaten or not eaten. Okay. Then she says, Yudhishthir used to go on yatra. When he went on yatra, he used to take lots of chariots, gifts, horses, elephants with him. I was the only one who had a complete detailed list of what went with him and what came with him. Then she says, the treasury of Indraprasth was like an ocean. It was so vast and so profound that nobody knew how much wealth we had except me. Eko aham api vedmi. She says, only I knew what was the treasury of Indraprastha like. Only I knew what were the finances, what was the income, what was the expenditure, and what was the savings we did. This was a lady. हम लोग को कहा जाता है, ladies had no rights. हम लोग को कहा जाता है, ladies were not working. हम लोग को कहा जाता है, ladies were only oppressed. Here is a lady who was actually the COO and CFO of Indraprasth. And I am telling you this verbatim, as it is given in Vyasaji Rachit Mahabharat. Unfortunately, most of the people who write fiction on Mahabharat do not read the Mahabharat. And that is why you end up hearing stories like victimhood. Somebody recently asked me, but ma'am, you are saying that she was so good. Why did her father hate her? I'm like, yeah. Apparently in one of the fictional novels about Draupadi, it's written that she loved Karna and she did not get her love. Her father hated her because she was a girl. And I'm like, no. If the father hated her, would he arrange such a magnificent swayamvar for her? Just imagine. No. She was very loved. She was very respected. And not just by Pandavas, by everybody in Hastinapur and Indraprasth. And even today, we call her amongst the Panchasatis. This was the power of women. Every woman in our epic is extremely empowered and powerful. Do not fall for the narratives that you hear, because they are recontextualized to tell you that what we belong to are bad. No, it is not. Know your history for what it is. Know your scriptures for what they are. Keep what is good, discard what you don't agree with. We have that freedom, but at least read for what it is. Thank you so much.
We still have time for one round of question up to 3. I hope you're finding it interesting. I'm absolutely thrilled at what's going on. Major Saab, I'll finish with you first. Were you given a chance, shall we say, to relive, redo what you did in life? आप क्या करते जिससे हिंदुस्तानी कल्चरल इथोस से आप उसको ग्रहण करते? आप क्या कर लेते? Given a chance to relive your life. Hypothetical. You're not that old, I know that.
I know, yeah, actually, broadly speaking, अगर मुझे फिर से मौका मिले तो मैं फिर से कारगिल की लड़ाई लड़ूंगा और अच्छे से लड़ूंगा. फिर से कॉर्पोरेट में आऊँगा और अपने लिए पैसे बनाऊँगा, जो भी जो बाकी लोग करते हैं वो भी करूँगा. और अभी 100 बच्चों को पढ़ा रहा हूँ कहीं पे, अगली बार होगा तो 1000 बच्चों को पढ़ाऊँगा. So that is the short answer, but I'll just elaborate a little bit more for the young crowd here. That one thing I would remember that is that all of us, which we tend to forget often, is that all of us are born into privilege and therefore entitlement. Let us not forget that. Sorry, am I audible? Okay, sorry. तो एक ये reality है कि हम लोग इस देश के possibly of the world, we are in the top few % of people who are born. Am I audible at the back? Yeah. Okay. So let us not forget that we are born into privilege. We are the top few % of the prosperous people in the world. So you should thank God every morning for that. I would do that. Maybe I didn't do it as a young man, because we often tend to forget that. And therefore we tend to complain about a lot of things. We tend to be unhappy at times without the willingness to do something about it, without the willingness to go and change it, because वो किसी और का काम होता है कि हमें बहुत अच्छी ज़िंदगी मिले, सब कुछ मिले ज़िंदगी का, और मैं I feel it is my right without doing anything in return. So that is point number 1. Point number 2, if I could, I would look beyond myself earlier on in life. I would try and be a good citizen. I would obey the rules. I would pay my taxes. I would not litter. I will not violate the traffic rules, because that is the least we can do to build the nation. You know, whenever we feel tempted to sort of break the rules or use the back door. And the last of it is that I would want to see the world with my own eyes and not believe what a small screen of a few inches throws up at me. You know, many times, as Ami ma'am was saying, we fall into narratives because that is not the real world. The real world is out of these few inches of electronic screen. Please go out there, experience it, connect with it, and you will see a whole new perspective, not just of our country, but also of our lives. Thank you so much.
Short answers to be requested out of the 2 remaining. After that, one last question from the audience is there. First to Uma Madam. You're the principal, you're foraying into philosophical inquiries, you're teaching your children. Value-based life के लिए आप अपने बच्चों के साथ क्या करते हो या क्या करना चाहोगे? What is it that you would like to inculcate? How do you think you can practically do something that will take them towards value-based life? That's a question.
Thank you. It's actually a passionate one that I had started a few years ago, just before I became the principal of the college. Just one summer afternoon, I thought, instead of blaming the children, saying that you're not carrying the values with you, the days have changed, zamana badal gaya, it was not the old time, all that doesn't make any sense. So I experimented it, and therefore I also invite Hemlata Bhaga ma'am that I'm ready to come and do this experiment in your university also. What I call it is, 7 years back, I experimented calling it as a value lab, which means that the students are going to do it, not the staff is just one of the staff is in charge, and students collectively are told on the 1st of every month, a value is declared by me. I declare a value, right? And the whole college takes notice of that value, and they do a lot of activities based on that value. It could be a quiz, it could be a competition, it could be a poetry, it could be even a cut-paste thing from the internet, whatever it is, and it is put up. There's just one long board in SIS, which is called as a Value Lab board. They come and stick it. So the whole college is aware of that value at least for 1 month. Whether it's a honesty, whether it's love, whether it's a joy of giving, whether it is kindness, cooperation, integrity. So far we have done around 40 values in the last so many years. So what enthused me, Sundaresan, if I have to tell you, is students would, by 29th, 30th, they would come and tell me, ma'am, what is the value next month? So getting geared for it so that they want to do an activity. One of the most very moving thing which I want to share with you is, there was forgiveness was one of the value. Last year we had it. And all kind of poetry was written, a talk was conducted and all that. After that they lost ideas. So I just told the students, why don't you ask for forgiveness? Not just once. If you're really feeling sorry about what you have done to anybody, this is the time for you to do it. So you can do it. So if you want, you can get that person, and you don't have the guts to go and tell, whether it could be a parents, it could be a neighbor, it could be a friend, it could be your anybody, uncle, auntie, anybody. But you feel like because of one incident, one stupid thing, we have not spoken to such people for years, isn't it? We keep that kind of panga with us. I will not talk to you because that day you spoke rudely to me. That's it. And the youth have it so much. So I told the students, this is the time, if you're really believing in the world of, in the value of forgiveness, you need to forgive the person. So you'll have to come and say sorry, and that's it. It's over. You wouldn't believe, ladies and gentlemen and dear students, what moved me most that day was, in our quadrangle we had called, more than 100 students brought to whom they are supposed to tell sorry. They brought, one student had brought her grandmother, with whom she has not spoken for 5 years because grandmother scolded her or did something which was angry and did not speak. She got her grandmother. In front of everybody, she asked for forgiveness. And the relationship was brought back. Families appreciated this. If the person could have just told sorry very easily. Why are we so ashamed even to tell sorry when I'm really wrong? Isn't it? When we take so much of pride on the others. So Sundaresan, what at SIS we have done is, I've experimented with the Value Lab. And I'm collaborating with a lot of schools. Raji is here. We have collaborated with all the SIS schools. And I've also been talking about it in various institutes. If we do that, these students, we say that values cannot be taught. It has to be caught. But how do you catch them? Unless they are involved consciously in that. If it is forgiveness, at least 1 month they will know, I need to forgive, I need to feel sorry for it. If it is honesty, 1 month at least such bolega na. At least 1 month honesty will be there. But over a period of time, it becomes a conscious effort. So as all of us believe that Indian culture, Indian spirituality, Indian philosophy internalizes everything. And this is one of the pathway to lead it. Thank you.
Last question, before that question and answer, only two questions remaining. This is to the young physicist here. What would you advise the youth who are caught between two sides, are on the verge of accepting another culture or parts of that culture or getting deracinated? What would your advice be in short, without being dictatorial about it?
Well, so the first thing is that what is about adapting other cultures? So what runs in your mind? What circulates in your mind?
Quickly, what circulates in your mind?
I want to be smart. I want to be so-called quote-unquote cool. I want to look cool. People want me to call a hero or heroine. But who will accept a person as his hero who does not have respect for himself or herself? Who only mimics, not develops? So in order to get respect from others, one must have the self-respect. I must respect myself. If I hate myself, who will respect me? It's a common sense. So the idea of becoming a hero by adapting something else and completely bashing our own culture is an illogical thought process, right? So Swami Vivekananda here says that out of the past, new will emerge. Out of the past, we can build the future. And he directly says that the current degeneration is not due to the fault of our system, the fault of the principles. Rather, the principles were not allowed to reach to their legitimate conclusion. That's what Swamiji says. So now have a look of Swamiji's words on Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji himself was cheated by his own countrymen. He lost his all four sons due to the deception by his own countrymen. But at the end, what he said, "Char mujhe to kya hai, jivat kai hazar." So Swami Vivekananda says about Guru Gobind Singh that you should learn from Guru Gobind Singh, and if you want to make India re-glorified, mark me, every one of you, each one of you has to be Guru Gobind Singh, because he found faults in his countrymen, but still he had that respect. He identified that blood, the one blood. So if you do not respect yourself, you will not get the respect. This effort is bound to fail. So first respect yourself. How will you respect yourself? By looking into the past and attempt to make ourselves glorified yet more than we were glorified in the past. That is the idea. Thank you.
That ends the panel discussion. There's one question from Smitesh Gawli. We'll end here. It's the longest question. I was part of one of the Ganpati Visarjan processions. One British man was besides me and asked me what country he is from. I asked him what country he is from. He replies, England. I told him that their Prime Minister is from this culture. He smiled. He also told me that we must have such festivals in London too. He asked me one question. Why do we celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi? Why do we celebrate it only for 10 days? Some people have idols at home for 3, 5 or 10 days. Why is it like that? He tells me that he had asked me questions to most of the etc., etc. I knew the reason and he was happy to know. I told him the complete story of Ganesh ji writing in Mahabharata Granth for 10 days continuously. My question is, why we ourselves don't know our culture? I have been studying mostly about the British rule, Western scientists, mathematicians, etc., etc. Why am I not taught my own Indian culture? It's a very important and heartfelt question. Gauli, thank you so much. One of the reasons we are doing this panel discussion is that there has been a miss in our attempts. There have been historical and sociological reasons why we've been deracinated. We've been defensive about our own culture. Things are changing, but your question is absolutely well taken. I take the opportunity now to thank the panelists, Dr. Uma, Dr. Chatterjee, Major Chaudhary, Ms. Ganatra. Thank you so much, and thank you for the audience. We take leave of you. All the very best to the next panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such an insightful session. The discussion that followed really delved deep into the nuances of cultural sovereignty and has left us with a feeling of pride. I would like to invite upon stage our trustee of HSNC board, Mrs. Maya Shahani, to felicitate our panelists and our moderator for this session. Dr. Sanghamitra Chatterjee. Our moderator for today, Mr. A.L. Sundaresan. A loud round of applause for sir. Major Rohit Chaudhary. And Ms. Ami Ganatra. Our panelists, may we have a group picture with ma'am in the front of this table. I also invite upon stage our Vice Chancellor, Professor Hemlata Bagla. Professor Hemlata K. Bagla, if you could please felicitate our trustee, Mrs. Maya Shahani, with a token of our appreciation. I now invite my colleague, Ms. Surya Guner, to take over for the next session.